Welcome to the Sunset Stories channel. Don't forget to subscribe and share your favorite stories with your friends. Thanks for your support and enjoy watching. Oliver had never imagined that his life could shatter in a single morning. It began on an unassuming spring day in suburban New England. As dawn broke, Oliver moved about his small kitchen preparing breakfast for his son, 11-year-old Leo. The aroma of toasted sourdough filled the air while Leo, quietly engrossed in a book about computer science, sat at the kitchen table. "Come on, Leo, hurry up," Oliver urged as he skimmed through work emails on his laptop. "You have school in half an hour, and I'm about to join an important video conference." Leo offered a small nod, his expression calm and thoughtful, far beyond what one might expect from an 11-year-old. Oliver had always admired his son's mature and methodical nature. Yet today, that quiet composure struck him with an inexplicable unease. Just then, the sound of familiar footsteps echoed from the foyer. Paula, Oliver's wife and Leo's mother, entered the kitchen. Once known for her bright eyes and an infectious smile that could light up any room, today her face was set in a strained mask. She moved with a guarded air, as if hiding an overwhelming secret. In recent weeks, she had grown distant, often leaving home for long stretches and returning late, never quite meeting Oliver's gaze. "I have some errands to run," she said, avoiding eye contact. Removing a beige coat from the rack, she bent to gently kiss Leo's head. "Don't wait up for dinner. I might be late." "Is it a business meeting or something personal?" Oliver asked, his throat tightening with worry. She only waved her hand dismissively, muttering something indistinctly before leaving. The door closed softly behind her, leaving Oliver and Leo in a heavy, wordless silence. Oliver couldn't shake the thought that Paula was not herself lately, but he pushed aside the growing anxiety, hoping it would pass. 2 days later, the ordinary rhythm of Oliver's life, work, household chores, and supervising Leo's studies, continued despite the persistent cloud of doubt. Evenings became quieter. Paula's brief, tired greetings were void of the warmth they once held. Leo, perceptive beyond his years, noticed his mother's chilly distance, but never asked any questions. Instead, he immersed himself in his digital world, his eyes often fixed on his tablet as he typed away or made hushed phone calls. On a Friday evening, after another long day, Oliver finally settled down to check his bank statements. As he scrolled through his emails, a terse notification caught his eye: account balance below minimum requirement. His heart skipped a beat. Their savings, the fund painstakingly built over years to secure Leo's future education, were supposed to be untouchable. With trembling hands, Oliver logged into the bank's mobile app. What he saw made his blood run cold. The account, once brimming with over $128,000 in savings, now read $0. Not a single dollar remained. Oliver blinked in disbelief, repeating his login attempt over and over, each time greeted by the same stark, empty balance. Then, in a desperate bid for answers, he switched to their joint credit card account, a tool used for larger, shared expenses. There, his eyes scanned an avalanche of transactions: luxury restaurant bills, expensive boutique purchases, and overnight hotel stays in cities far from home. It was all there, the unmistakable fingerprints of Paula's lavish spending. Every charge, every withdrawal, piled up to a staggering sum that should have never been possible on their careful budget. What is this?" Oliver muttered, his voice barely audible as he re-entered his password again and again, hoping it might be a technical glitch. But it wasn't. His family's financial future, Leo's college fund, once a symbol of hope and hard work, had been completely wiped clean. A soft voice broke through his spiraling thoughts. "Dad, is everything okay?" Leo asked from behind him, a glass of orange juice in hand. The boy's gaze was steady and curious, not frightened, but filled with a quiet intensity that unsettled Oliver even more. "It's just a technical issue, Leo," Oliver stammered, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Yet, in Leo's expression flickered something that wasn't fear. It was a spark of knowing interest, as if he had anticipated this moment all along. Oliver's heart pounded as he switched screens one more time to view the credit card's transaction history. The evidence was undeniable. Paula's spree of spending was real and relentless. Panic and sorrow wrestled within him as he dialed Paula's number repeatedly. Each call went straight to voicemail. Finally, when he checked the bedroom, his worst suspicion was confirmed. Paula's suitcase was gone, and several items were missing from her closet. It dawned on him. She had left, taking every penny of their hard-earned savings with her, leaving behind a void too painful to comprehend. The following morning, Leo found his father slumped on the living room sofa, his gaze vacant and haunted. Unable to mask his anguish any longer, Oliver broke the silence. "Leo, your mother has left us," he said, his voice heavy with despair. "It looks like she took our savings and disappeared without a trace." Leo's eyes dropped to the floor for a moment, then lifted with a calm that startled Oliver. "I sort of knew something was off," he said softly. "She's been acting really strange lately." The contrast between Oliver's raw devastation and Leo's unnerving composure only deepened Oliver's confusion. As days passed, Oliver spiraled into a state of numb depression. He spent countless hours pacing through empty rooms, attempting to contact Paula and sending angry, desperate messages. Every time he tried to sleep, the overwhelming thought, "How could she do this?" echoed relentlessly in his mind. Meanwhile, Leo's behavior grew even more peculiar. In the evenings, he would lock himself away in his room, typing rapidly on his tablet and making whispered phone calls. When Oliver asked about his activities, Leo would merely offer vague answers like, "Just working on a school project." But the truth was far more sinister, a secret project that Leo had been working on in silence. One night, unable to contain his worry, Oliver followed Leo into the hallway, where he'd caught a glimpse of his son frantically switching between apps. "Leo, what are you doing?" he demanded. "Nothing, Dad," Leo replied, his tone measured yet evasive. "I'm just working on a cybersecurity project for school. Everything's under control." Though Oliver wanted to press him further, his own heart was too heavy to ask more questions. Instead, he resolved to let things be for now, clinging to the hope that Paula's absence was only temporary. A week later, just as Oliver was beginning to accept the bitter new reality, the doorbell rang one quiet evening. Warily, he opened the door to find the mail carrier holding a registered letter with no return address, only a handwriting that struck him as oddly familiar. Inside the envelope, Oliver discovered two photographs. In one, Paula was seen laughing, arms wrapped around a tall, confident man with a self-assured smile. In the other, she was dining in an upscale restaurant, surrounded by exquisite dishes and a glass of vintage wine. Along with the photos came a short note. "Curious how far we've come? Don't try to track us down. Paula and Maxwell." At the mention of Maxwell, a surge of righteous fury gripped Oliver. Had Paula really abandoned them for the stranger? The thought stung like a fresh wound. In a fit of anger, he crumpled the photographs, intent on destroying them. But before he could, Leo intervened. "Wait, Dad. Let me have them," Leo said quietly, gently collecting the torn pieces. "They might be important." Oliver hesitated, then reluctantly handed the fragments over. Deep inside, he sensed that Leo was already planning something far more intricate than a simple act of revenge. And indeed, over the following days, Leo's behavior grew even more focused. In secret, he spent hours poring over online tutorials, coding scripts, and tracing digital footprints, actions that he would later reveal were part of a dangerous plan. Late one night, Leo approached Oliver with a serious look on his face. "Dad, I need to show you something," he said, pulling up a secured folder on his tablet. The screen displayed a web of transactions, encrypted logs, and digital maps tracking money flows. "What is all this?" Oliver asked, his voice wavering between awe and dread. I hacked into the accounts, Leo replied calmly. I found where Maxwell was funneling money and even uncovered details about his network of scammers. It looks like Mom got involved at some point. She may not have planned it from the start, but she definitely chose his side later on. Oliver's heart pounded as he scrolled through the data. His son, with the cold precision of a seasoned hacker, had not only restored their stolen savings back to their account, but had also forwarded evidence of Maxwell's criminal operations to the authorities. In that moment, Oliver was torn between a surge of pride and a deep-seated fear of what his son had done. Leo, how did you even pull this off? He asked in a hushed tone. I just used what I've learned from coding classes and competitions, Leo explained simply. I wasn't doing it for fun. I wanted to get our money back and stop Maxwell from hurting anyone else. Despite the chill that ran down his spine, Oliver couldn't help but feel a conflicted admiration for his son's resourcefulness. Yet, even as he embraced a flicker of satisfaction at having outsmarted Maxwell, the overwhelming betrayal by Paula left him reeling with sorrow and bitterness. The next morning, as Saturday dawned with a pale, uncertain light, Oliver's phone rang. The caller ID showed an unknown number. With a mix of trepidation and a desperate hope for answers, Oliver answered. Oliver, came a trembling voice on the other end. It was Paula. Once, he had longed for her warm apologies, but now her voice was laced with panic and regret. Listen, I know you're angry, she pleaded, but please just hear me out. I'm in another city now. I can't come back. Maxwell, he's disappeared. He betrayed me, and now I'm in serious trouble. My accounts have been frozen, and I'm scared they're going to arrest me. A surge of conflicting emotions washed over Oliver. Righteous indignation, bitter satisfaction, and a deep, aching hurt. Why should I help you? He spat, his voice cold. You ran off with all our money without a second thought. I made a mistake, Oliver, she sobbed. I trusted Maxwell, thinking he'd give me a new start. I never intended to hurt you or Leo. I'm trapped now. I need a way out. Oliver's silence was heavy as he clenched the phone. Just then, Leo stepped quietly into the room, his eyes fixed on the screen as if he'd been expecting this call all along. That was Mom, Leo said flatly. She's asking for help. Help, Oliver repeated in disbelief. After what she did, Leo's gaze was unreadable. She says Maxwell's turned on her. She claims she's innocent of the fraud. They want to pin everything on her. But I'm not convinced. In the end, she made her choice. Oliver's anger bubbled over. I won't be dragged back in her mess, he growled. I'm done cleaning up after her. A tense silence fell. Then Leo continued, his tone steady and unervingly mature. I already did something, Dad. I fixed what was stolen, and I've sent the evidence to the authorities. Maxwell is the one we need to worry about now. Oliver stared at his son, torn between a father's protective instincts and the icy resolve in Leo's voice. What do you mean by fixed? He asked softly. Leo's eyes narrowed as he explained. I got our money back, and I made sure Maxwell's network can be traced. He'll pay for his crimes. And if Mom tries to come back into our lives asking for help, there will be no mercy. A heavy silence followed. Oliver's heart pounded as he processed his son's words, a mixture of pride in his technical prowess and horror at the cost of their family's innocence. Despite his inner turmoil, he knew that their situation left them with no choice but to continue down this dangerous path. A few days later, late one chilly night, Oliver was startled awake by a persistent knock at the door. His pulse quickened as he crept to the peephole. Outside stood a tall man with an aggressive, predatory smile. Maxwell. It seemed he had discovered their address. Oliver's mind raced with fear and anger as he opened the door just a crack. Maxwell's eyes gleamed in the dim hallway light. Nice to finally meet you, Oliver, Maxwell said smoothly, his voice dripping with false charm. May I come in? Not a chance, Oliver replied, his tone tense. Leave now, or I'll call the police. Before Maxwell could retort, Leo emerged from around the corner, clutching his tablet with an unervingly calm expression. "What do you want?" the boy asked coolly. Maxwell's smirk faltered slightly at the sight of Leo. "Well, aren't you just a little tech whiz? Your mom told me you're the genius behind some very interesting computer tricks." "Everything I did was to get what was rightfully ours," Leo said firmly, "and to stop you from hurting anyone else." Maxwell leaned in, his voice low and menacing. "Listen here, kid. Don't think you can outsmart me. I know all about your family, and if you don't cooperate, I promise you won't like what happens next. I'll drag your mother, and you, down with me." Oliver felt his blood boil. "Get out before I call the police," he warned, though his hand trembled near his phone. Maxwell's eyes glinted dangerously. "I have friends in high places, Oliver. Don't think law enforcement is always on your side. Remember my words when trouble comes knocking." With that, Maxwell turned on his heel and vanished into the darkness of the hallway. Oliver slammed the door shut, his heart pounding in his chest. Leo's voice broke the silence. "He suspects something. We need to be careful." "I know," Oliver admitted, his hands still shaking. "Maybe we should contact the police officially." Leo shook his head slowly. "We already sent them everything anonymously. Now, Maxwell won't wait around. He'll act soon." "Then what do you suggest we do?" Oliver asked, desperate for a plan. Leo looked into the distance, his tone deliberate. "We need to force Maxwell's hand before he forces ours. And maybe we have to use Mom as bait." Oliver's eyes widened in shock. "Leo, she's your mother. She betrayed us," Leo said, his voice chillingly calm. "I can't just forgive and forget. If the only way to protect us is to make her cooperate with the authorities, then that's what needs to be done." Oliver's stomach churned. He had never imagined his son's resolve could be so ruthless. But the reality was stark. Maxwell posed a deadly threat, and Paula's actions had already torn their family apart. The very next day, Oliver summoned the courage to call Paula. Her phone rang almost immediately, her voice shaky and urgent as soon as she answered. "Oliver," she whispered, as if expecting him. "Maxwell was at our door last night," Oliver said bluntly. "He knows our money is back in our account. He knows you stopped helping him. I'm sure this was planned by you." "No, Oliver, it's not like that," Paula cried, her voice quivering. "Maxwell thinks I leaked his operation, but I don't understand any of this. I just wanted to fix things between us. I never intended for any of this to go so far. Now I'm trapped. They've frozen my accounts. I might even get arrested." Oliver's anger surged as he cut her off. "What are you talking about? How can you be so careless? You left us for a man, and now you're expecting me to help you." There was a long pause on the line before Paula spoke again, her voice barely audible. "There is one way out," she said hesitantly. "I can help you bring Maxwell down. I have some direct evidence, but I need to record his confession. Please, let me talk to Leo. He understands technology better than I do." Oliver's tone hardened. "I won't let you use our son for your schemes. He's already suffered enough." Before Paula could protest, Leo stepped into the room, his gaze unwavering. "Dad, it's done. I've sent everything to the authorities, but we can't just let Maxwell roam free. If Mom cooperates and records what he says, we might finally put an end to this." Oliver hesitated, the weight of his betrayal and loss mingling with the desire for justice. Finally, with a heavy sigh, he said, "Fine, but if you're going to put yourself in danger, be careful." Paula's voice softened with relief. "I promise. I'll do whatever it takes." That evening, under a cloudy sky, Paula agreed to meet Maxwell at a rundown hotel near the city's central train station, a place that smelt of damp carpet and stale cigarette smoke. Oliver and Leo parked a few blocks away in a nondescript sedan, their car filled with tension and makeshift equipment, a laptop, hidden cameras, and a recording device discreetly tucked into a messenger bag. Paula was instructed to wear a small hidden microphone and act as though she were negotiating with Maxwell. She was to insist that she had compromising evidence, hoping to draw Maxwell into a conversation that could be recorded and later used as evidence. Inside the dilapidated lobby of the hotel, Paula sat in an old armchair near the reception desk, her eyes fixed nervously on the door. Clad in a dark coat, she adjusted a tiny earpiece and whispered to herself, "I have to do this. For all of us." Back in the car, Leo's fingers trembled slightly on the steering wheel as he monitored a live feed from a tracking app on his tablet. "Dad, the signal's coming in. Maxwell's phone is approaching the hotel," he announced. Moments later, the door swung open and a deep, familiar voice filled the space. "Come in," Maxwell ordered, his tone both mocking and threatening as he stepped inside. His imposing figure and predatory smile contrasted sharply with the dim ambience of the lobby. From the other end of the line, Paula's voice emerged, shaky but determined. "I'm here. Let's talk, Maxwell." Inside the hotel room, a sparsely furnished space on the second floor with peeling wallpaper and a musty odor, Maxwell and Paula faced each other. The tension was palpable. "So, you finally decided to play the victim?" Maxwell sneered, leaning forward. "What's this about, Paula? You claim you have some sort of evidence against me. Don't think I'm that easily fooled." Paula took a deep breath, steadying herself. "I do have evidence, Maxwell. I know about the money transfers, the secret accounts. You stole everything and then vanished when it was time to take responsibility. I want to help fix it, but you need to tell me everything." Maxwell's eyes narrowed dangerously. "And what makes you think you can control me? You're nothing without me," he spat. The conversation grew heated as Paula tried to force a confession, her voice trembling as she pushed him to admit his crimes. Meanwhile, back in the car, Oliver watched the live feed with mounting dread. Leo's eyes were fixed on his tablet, recording every word, every hesitation. Suddenly, the tone shifted. "You think you can record our conversation and use it against me?" Maxwell hissed. "You're playing a dangerous game, Paula." Before Paula could reply, a scuffle broke out. Maxwell's hand shot forward, striking Paula across the face. She cried out, staggering back against the wall. Oliver's heart clenched as he watched in horror from the car. "Paula!" Leo shouted urgently, though his voice remained eerily calm as he fumbled with his phone to start an emergency call. In a flash, Oliver and Leo sprang into action. Oliver parked the car a few feet away and rushed to the hotel door, his heart pounding with fear and fury. With a can of pepper spray in hand, he burst into the room. Leo, clutching his phone, followed close behind. "Freeze!" Oliver bellowed as he advanced toward Maxwell, who was momentarily disoriented from his own aggression. Maxwell staggered back, dropping a small electronic device in the process, a laptop that had been his backup tool. In the ensuing chaos, Maxwell reached for something in his jacket pocket. "Get away from her!" Oliver shouted, deploying the pepper spray directly at Maxwell's face. The noxious aerosol filled the room, and Maxwell's features contorted in pain as he coughed and clawed at his eyes. "Dad, hurry!" Leo urged from behind as Oliver disarmed Maxwell and wrestled a concealed handgun from his jacket. At that moment, the distant sound of sirens pierced the tension-filled air, a result of the emergency alert Leo had triggered on his phone. Within minutes, the police stormed the building. Officers ordered everyone to the ground, their authoritative shouts echoing in the cramped room. Maxwell was quickly subdued, handcuffed, and read his rights while Oliver kept a trembling eye on Paula, who sat cradled against the wall, her face bruised and tear-streaked. In the aftermath of the confrontation, Maxwell's criminal empire began to unravel. The evidence that Leo had painstakingly gathered, every encrypted transaction, every log of illicit transfers, proved overwhelming. Maxwell was charged with fraud, money laundering, and assault. His arrest sent shockwaves through the local criminal underworld, and whispers of his downfall spread quickly. Paula, though injured and traumatized, was taken into custody for questioning. Given her cooperation and the evidence she inadvertently provided during her meeting with Maxwell, prosecutors promised a lighter sentence if she continued to assist with the investigation. Yet, for Oliver, her pleas and tearful confessions only deepened the wound of betrayal. At the police station, as officers documented every detail, Oliver's thoughts swirled with conflicting emotions. He had wanted justice for his family, but the cost, the loss of trust, the shattered bond of a once-loving marriage, felt unbearable. Leo, though quietly observant, remained eerily composed, as if this grim chapter had been inevitable all along. After several grueling months, the trial began. Maxwell's trial was a media sensation, and the courtroom was packed with reporters hungry for details of the high-stakes family drama turned criminal saga. Paula testified against Maxwell, her voice wavering as she recounted the events of that fateful night. Meanwhile, Leo's digital evidence played a crucial role in sealing Maxwell's fate. His recordings, along with the hacked financial logs, painted a damning picture of the criminal mastermind's operations. Oliver sat in the gallery, his heart heavy as he listened. He could barely meet Paula's eyes when she apologized, her tone thick with remorse. "I know you can never forgive me," she whispered, "but I'm truly sorry. Sorry doesn't bring back what was lost." Oliver muttered, his voice raw with sorrow and anger. Leo, who had listened silently throughout the proceedings, gave nothing away, only a slight, almost imperceptible nod that suggested he believed justice had finally been served. Maxwell was sentenced to a lengthy prison term, his empire in ruins. Paula, facing charges of complicity in the financial crimes, was given a suspended sentence and hefty fines, thanks in part to her cooperation with authorities. Yet even as the legal dust began to settle, the emotional scars ran deep. In the months following the trial, Oliver and Leo tried to piece together a semblance of normalcy. Their once secure financial future was slowly being rebuilt as the recovered funds were partially restored and wisely reinvested. Oliver couldn't help but notice the subtle transformation in his son. Leo's natural aptitude for technology had evolved into an almost chilling resolve, a resolve that had saved them, but had also hardened him in ways Oliver found both impressive and frightening. One cool autumn evening, as the two sat quietly in their modest living room, Oliver broke the silence. "Leo, I know you did what you felt was right," he began slowly, "but what you did, hacking into those systems, taking matters into your own hands, could have landed you in serious trouble. Did you ever think about the consequences?" Leo's gaze drifted to the flickering screen of his laptop, where lines of code danced in hypnotic patterns. "I understood the risks, Dad," he said evenly. "I knew that if we had waited for the system to correct itself or relied on the police alone, Maxwell would have slipped away and you'd both have suffered even more. I did what had to be done." Oliver sighed heavily, the pain of betrayal still fresh in his heart. "I'm not saying you're wrong, Leo. I just worry about the path you're on. Revenge and vigilantism aren't always the answers. But sometimes," Leo replied softly, "when the people you love betray you, you have no choice but to fight back. I don't regret what I did. It was the only way to protect us." Their conversation lingered in the dim light as Oliver contemplated a future where forgiveness might one day heal their wounds. Yet the bitterness of Paula's betrayal and the harsh lessons learned from Maxwell's downfall remained etched into his soul. Late that night, as Oliver lay awake staring at the ceiling, he found himself haunted by dreams of Paula. In these dreams, she would wander across an old stone bridge under a moonlit sky, her eyes filled with sorrow, reaching out as if begging for forgiveness. Oliver longed to take her back, to restore the family they once had, but deep down he knew that the bridge between them had been burned beyond repair. In the days that followed, Leo's passion for technology continued to blossom. He won several local competitions, and even began tutoring other children in coding, his achievements a bittersweet reminder of the cost of his family's ordeal. Oliver, meanwhile, sought solace in rebuilding the life they had lost, albeit with scars that would forever mark his heart. One crisp winter morning, as snow dusted the quiet streets, Oliver walked into Leo's room to find him carefully examining old photographs spread out on his desk. Among them were snapshots of Paula and Maxwell. Images that once sparked unbearable anger now served as solemn mementos of a painful past. "Did you throw them out?" Oliver asked quietly. "No," Leo replied, looking up with clear, steady eyes. "I want to remember how easily trust can be broken, and how important it is never to take anyone for granted." Oliver felt a lump form in his throat. For a moment, he considered urging his son to let go of the past, to embrace forgiveness. But then he saw the determined glint in Leo's eyes, a spark of resilience forged in fire, and he realized that healing was not about erasing pain, but learning to live with it. "Good night, son," Oliver whispered as he left the room, the silence that followed both heavy and strangely peaceful. "Sleep well, Dad," came Leo's soft reply. As time passed, Oliver and Leo settled into a new, uncertain routine. The scars of betrayal remained, a constant reminder of the cost of misplaced trust. Yet in their shared silence and small acts of courage, they found the strength to move forward. Oliver often wondered if he could ever forgive Paula, or if forgiveness was even possible after such deep betrayal. But for now, he focused on protecting his son and rebuilding a life where integrity and justice still mattered. In a quiet, reflective moment one evening, Oliver sat by the window watching the sunset and pondered the future. He hoped that someday, Leo's formidable talents would be used for good, that he would channel his drive for retribution into creating something meaningful rather than perpetuating cycles of vengeance. It was a hope laced with both pride and worry, for the world was full of shadows, and even the brightest light sometimes struggled against the darkness. The shattered bonds of their past would never fully disappear, but in the delicate process of healing, Oliver realized that every scar told a story. Their story was one of betrayal, of a family torn apart by greed and deception, but also of a son's unyielding determination to reclaim what was lost and a father's quiet resolve to rebuild and protect. And so, as the last traces of twilight faded away, Oliver vowed that no matter how painful the journey ahead, he and Leo would continue to move forward together, learning, growing, and perhaps one day, finding a way to let go of the bitterness and embrace a future where trust, though fragile, might one day be restored. That's the end of our story. We hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment. Your feedback means a lot to us.